we are going to talk basketball, and a man who definitely knows the sport is the CEO of the Minnesota Lynx, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Ethan Casson. He is in studio with me right now. Hi there, Ethan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. I have to say, I'm very happy because my undergrad team, Boston College, beat Duke yesterday.
I saw that.
It was a good day in BC land.
A rare day in BC land?
Okay, all right. You'll just let me ride it out for a couple days. Yes, it was a rare day. My brother and I both went to BC undergrad, and our cousin Robert, who went to Bloomington Jefferson, then went to Duke undergrad. We always have the family rivalry going. So the text trash talk was starting before the game, and I was at lunch with a friend, so I wasn't watching any of it, and got out of the lunch to basically Robert congratulating us on the win, and I was like, I can't believe this. So that was very fun.
Yeah. No, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So you were around basketball all the time. Mm-hmm. It's a big year for the Timberwolves. It's been a big time period for the Lynx, but let's start with the Timberwolves because there are some new things going on for you.
Yeah, we've been in a transformation over the last, 12 to 16 months. When you go back and think about a brand new basketball operations staff with Coach Thibodeau, all the way to, the renovation of Target Center, the unveiling of new logos for both franchises, what's taking place on the court, the success that we're seeing with our players here early on in the season, Jimmy Butler this past summer. There's so many different things that are happening that are developing momentum, hope, and expectation in a market that candidly has rooted their Timberwolves on, but have been let down for a lot of years based on performance. We're starting to see a little bit of that wind in the sails, and we're really excited.
When you first came in as CEO, did that kind of, be honest here, did that kind of worry you a little bit? Because we have had some sluggish times.
Yeah, I would say I looked at it as an incredible opportunity. I was listening to the segment that you had prior to joining you, and it was all about career development and what do students and kids want to do with their lives. And I always wanted to work in professional sports. I always saw myself in a position like this. If I applied myself, if I aligned myself with the right brands, right leagues at the right time. I actually worked for the Timberwolves out of college. It was my first job out of college.
So lots of impressions.
Yeah, and so for me to be in this role of CEO, having started my career with the Timberwolves, left and now back in it, I knew a lot. There wasn't much that I came into the job that I didn't understand relative to the past and where we needed to go with the future of the organization. So eyes wide open is certainly how I approached it. And again, this is an opportunity, and you're seeing some of these things play out. It's early on, but attendance is up. We've got an extra 3,000 people attending the games night in and night out. I think that's the second highest growing point inside the NBA. Merchandise sales are up 60%. Television ratings are in the 70+%. So people are talking about the Timberwolves, and normally that's not something that necessarily happens all the time. So lots of work left to be done, but the enthusiasm, again, hope are there, and we're going to ride that out.
We are talking with the CEO of the Minnesota Lynx and the Minnesota Timberwolves. He is Ethan Casson. You can talk with him, too. Give us a ring, 651-989-9226, or text 81807. You talked about merchandise, Ethan, and I'm wearing vintage Timberwolves.
Yeah, you're going old school.
Old school, one of my favorite baseball caps. I got this many, many years ago. It was, in fact, in my college way back, interview process, senior year of high school, the only place I wanted to go was Georgetown. I applied early decision. I didn't have any other school in my mind. And one of your executives at the Timberwolves, when you were in Butler Square, was a Georgetown grad who was my interviewer. So I was in those offices. Mm-hmm. And not long after that, I got this hat. And it's been a long time. I did not get into Georgetown. I went to Boston College, but loved that. That was a good thing for me. But I love this hat. It's been through the wash hundreds of times. I wear it running. I've raced in it. It's clean now, but I can't give it up. I mean, I just love it.
If we offered you some of the new stuff, would you maybe pair that hat with some of the new brand and logo stuff that we've got now?
Ethan, I think I can open my heart to some of the new merchandise. Yeah, I think I could. Thank you. Speaking of that, what can fans expect when it comes to some of the new stuff? Because I think when you make a logo change and when you make uniform changes, that's also kind of hard to let go.
Yeah, no question. And I think you're right. There are people that are connected to the different chapters of the Timberwolves history, and those chapters involve different players, different memories, and certainly the logo and the brands associated to those chapters kind of are an emotional attachment as well. And I think what we tried to do, it was more of an evolution of a brand change than a revolution of a brand change. Was, as I'm looking across the studio here at your hat, there's so much of the new logo that we've unveiled that still has a tribute that we're paying to the original logo. And yet it's maybe more aggressive, maybe forward-facing. There's a connection point to the state of Minnesota. We've integrated the North Star. We've changed the color palette, lots of things, working in conjunction with Nike. So if you kind of peel it all back, there's a little bit of each era and each chapter of the Timberwolves history that represents really the new chapter of where we're going as an organization.
Yeah, so where are you going? What can you tell us that we don't already know when we have leaders like you in and we go behind the scenes and off the court a little bit? What can you tell Timberwolves fans and Minnesotans out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to tell. I think we tend to boil it down to what's happening on the court, what's happening off the court. On the court is what we talk about the most, wins and losses. A homestand coming up of 5 games here in the next 10 days that will be really important for us to kind of separate ourselves from some of the other teams in the Western Conference. We're pacing towards a playoff appearance, although it's very early, and that's something we haven't experienced in 13 plus years. So the stories of our players, their performances night in and night out are starting to unfold. People are starting to develop their favorite player. All of those things are taking place. Off the court, it's important for the business to continue to grow. It's important for us to do more in our communities, get wider in our communities. And we're doing some things to retool some of our community efforts, some of our foundation efforts to make sure that we're really, in fact, paying it forward. We're doing a lot in the technology space with a new mobile app experience that customers are seeing inside of Target Center.
Is that kind of like you had to go there with the mobile app? I mean, this is just where so much and young people are going, and many, don't even use desktop computers. That's foreign to them.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate, and certainly a debate that's happening with every team in every league, which is, how aggressive do you get in the technology and mobile space? For as many people that we talk about, whether it's trying to find new Timberwolves fans in the millennial space and the Gen Y, the Gen Z, and growing the game organically at the youth level, there's as many people that have been part of the organization and fans of the organization for 25 plus years who aren't maybe as comfortable moving everything to mobile, that actually in some cases want a paper ticket, something that they could touch and transfer in that capacity. So there's a balance between, innovating for the sake of innovation, or making sure that while you're innovating and making decisions in the technology arena, that it really is about the customer experience and that it's enhancing it and not doing anything but that.
Ethan Casson is my guest. You can chat with him. He's the CEO of the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx. Send us a text, 81807, or call us, 651-989-9226. This listener says this, Ethan, really like the new brand or refresh. Happy you didn't throw out the wolf with the bathwater. I don't think you can throw out the wolf, can you?
No, I actually technically don't think we can.
Really wouldn't be the Timberwolves without the wolf.
It would be an interesting logo without the Timberwolf. But exactly the point you made. Again, if you study it close enough, there is a tribute that's paid to every generation of our history, and yet it also feels more aggressive. Again, it's not by accident that the wolf is facing forward to suggest kind of a growth upon the horizon. It's not by accident that the North Star is kind of this end goal that you'll maybe never achieve, but you're always searching for, both from a basketball standpoint, to a business standpoint, to a community standpoint. So there's a lot of hidden little messages in that, and as we evolve and continue to tell those different stories, little nuggets of that brand story will begin to manifest itself.
All right, the brand story, maybe some career advice from Ethan Casson. We're going to take a break and then come back with more, welcoming your calls, 866 or 651-989-9226, or text 81. Roshini Rajkumar back with you, and I'm wearing my vintage Timberwolves baseball cap, one of the favorites in my baseball cap collection of about 30-some hats. My husband is like, can you just clean this thing out? This one cannot go. It will never go. I'm talking with, in studio, my guest, Ethan Casson. He's the CEO of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the links, you can talk with him too, 651-989-9226. Or text us, 81807. And as you know, the Timberwolves live action is on WCCO radio, so they are very intricately connected to our airwaves. Ethan, you and I are both members of a business group called Dunkers, and we get to hear from all these different sports leaders, including you. You and your coach a few weeks ago, the team coach, spoke to our group. I was really impressed. You seem to have a good vibe going. How important is that vibe between you and coach?
It's really important. I think when you think of the business side and the basketball side, and I would, I could say this having worked in the NFL prior to this, right? The importance of the collaboration that happens behind closed doors is critical, right? Because one doesn't happen without the other. And certainly we know that it's about our players. We know it's about the performance of our players, but there is an infrastructure of business that is a reality of all the leagues of this industry. And I think that the closer you are with your basketball operations departments or your operations departments with Vikings, Twins, Wild, et cetera, I think the better things will ultimately be over a long period of time. And that Dunkers event, that's always a fun period of time to be in front of such an influential group of people that are also huge avid sports fans. And I thought Coach did just a great job. And I thought, for the most part, he's a believe it or not, a reserved personality. I know that doesn't necessarily.
Coaches?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that necessarily projects itself.
He's hiding it well.
Literally and figuratively during a game, but he's somewhat reserved, kind of, off on the side. So for him to be as transparent as he was with that group that morning, it was kind of neat.
In my past life as a TV reporter and now as a radio host, I've interviewed thousands of people. It's countless. And I'm always impressed when a leader can also sound very real. And Coach was talking about some of your young players and the work ethic of some of your young players. And he has influenced them, but he also notices and is willing to give them the credit. And I think this is something I love when I have leaders like you in studio. We can kind of talk about a lot of things, really go off the court. What are some of the things that you've noticed about these players that you would really like Minnesotans and fans to know?
Well, that's, again, a great question. Use the word leadership, and there's no blueprint to a great leader or a great manager or a great executive. There really isn't a blueprint that exists. I think the blueprint is what you ultimately want to develop as your own. And then how does that translate to the audience, to your staff, and in Coach's case, to our players, right? So I think, as fans watching our players play, we don't necessarily look at it the same way, and yet it is, in fact, the same way. He is the CEO of that locker room, and they all have different personalities, need different things, have different strengths, have different weaknesses, communication, collaboration, being motivated, disciplined, open for criticism, celebrating when we need to celebrate. All of those things that we've all been exposed to, kind of quote off the court. Those are the same things that are applying on the court and inside that locker room. And to talk a little bit about our players, again, we've got such a great mixture of not just talent, but people at different stages of their career. And I'm not sure that we've had such a unique blend before. I know for a fact we haven't necessarily gone after someone like a Jimmy Butler, who's a 3-time All-Star and a gold medalist.
And that's who I was thinking about specifically with my comment.
Yeah, so I think someone like Jimmy, who's an experienced NBA player, one of the top 15 players probably arguably in the league, and has a relationship with Coach from them playing together in Chicago, he almost can act and communicate in a way that Coach might not be able to communicate with the players from player to player. So you add that veteran leadership, Taj Gibson, Jamal Crawford, Jimmy Butler, to a really young core of players like Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, who are going to be, already are great players, have the potential to be really incredible players for a long, long period of time. And really, it's about the chemistry that you can create with that dynamic. And that takes time. And I think, we're sitting at the 4th seed right now. And I think Timberwolves fans, if we were to tell you this past summer that that's where we'd be at this stage, they'd be really, really excited. And yet there's still, a pause or two. And I think more than anything, it has to do with just the dynamics of people and timing and getting to know one another, understanding people's roles and responsibilities. Coach being able to pull out the best of everybody, but the players really being able to mature and grow kind of from that standpoint.
Yeah, well, very wonderful to get some of that behind the scenes from you now and from Coach that day. And I think we don't always, just watching on TV or listening on WCCO radio, we don't always know that insider personality of each of the players.
No, absolutely. And I think that's also part of our responsibility to be in the community. Because there's a box score that will hopefully have us in the positive tonight after we play the Mavericks at Target Center. Whether you're listening on CCO or watching or attending the game tonight, there's a box score that will tell you how we did and how each player did. And yet on Friday we had all of our players doing our season of giving, our holiday gift shopping with kids at Target to buy them different gifts. And making sure that we're in fact giving back at such an important time of the year. So that's also part of this as well. It's how many points did you score? How many rebounds did you have? But what else are you doing off the court that's really inspiring and engaging and making a difference inside of the community? And I think, again, going back to the veterans, having understood that and been through that with our young nucleus, it's such a neat thing to be in a forum and an environment like that. For instance, with Carl, who's donating his time for the House of Charity on Thanksgiving prior to practice to feed people that are underprivileged. I mean, that's something really special that you can't teach a 22-year-old young man. That's just something he wants to
and they're doing that, some of which we know about, some of which is behind the scenes we don't know about, which is great.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Most of them would prefer to not have the camera. Most of them would prefer to just do it maybe kind of on their own. With friends and family and folks from the organization. And certainly there's a balance between wanting us to tell that story because it's incredible content and it matters. And the flip side of it is it's really neat that they're not necessarily doing it for any other reason than they know they have the resources, the time, and the influence to do something great.
All right, Ethan, when I have leaders like you and I like to do a little bit of a fire round, I'm going to give you a little time, though, to think about my first question so I can handle some other things. The first question would be, when you're not watching basketball, what are you doing that has nothing to do with basketball? So think about that for a moment while I share this wonderful text from Dan. Thanks, Dan. Roshini, I look forward every Sunday listening to you and your guests on WCCO Radio. Have a great week. Well, you too, Dan. And next week, we'll be back with another installment of our Local Leader Series when U of M President Eric Kaler will be in studio at 1:05. We'll also have our 4th annual Futures Roundtable. And this Thursday, I'm in for John Hines, and we have a special Star Wars segment planned for you. So tune in Thursday from 9 to noon. All right, Ethan, what would you be doing if you weren't dealing with basketball?
I wish you'd give me more time, actually, to be really honest. I'm not sure I came up with a great answer. I mean, I think when you work in professional sports, it's something that's something you're required to be a part of, whether it's game night and non-game night. I would say, though, if there's something I wasn't doing relative to the Timberwolves and Lynx, I've got my in-laws that live here in downtown Minneapolis. My wife's from the Twin Cities. When we came back from San Francisco, a neat part of this, not just to be part of an organization that I started at, was also to be around family and have them be part of this journey with us together. So I would say if I'm not in the basketball mode, family mode is right down the street, and I really enjoy that piece.
That is excellent. Well, Ethan Casson, thank you for sharing your time, your expertise, and your fun with us today. He is the CEO of the Timberwolves and Lynx. Roshini Rajkumar signing out. Make it a great week.